It's the George Plaster Show. 30 years of the best sports talk in Middle Tennessee, featuring Tennessee Radio Hall of Famer George Plaster, Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame coach Watson Brown, and young guns Billy Derrick and Michael Cindric. And now, here's your host, George Plaster.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome in on a beautiful Tuesday afternoon. We have a late bulletin. Georgia has just scored again to go up 72-7. And goodness.
Be nice to the Horned Frogs.
Oh, please. Please. 65-7? Are you kidding? That's awful. Coach Watson Brown joins us from his palatial mansion up on the plateau. Watson, that was painful to watch.
George, I told you to take the points.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
How'd that work out?
It worked out real well.
I think if we'd ended the game at the end of the quarter.
You could have shut that off on about the second series if you'd wanted to. So, no, I feel awful for them. I'm embarrassed for them, honestly. It's just for them, the Big 12. George, it was over their head. I mean, they had big eyes walking out for warm-ups. I mean, they're better than that. They're not near as good as Georgia. It's obvious. You can see it. But at the same time, now it was too much for them. It was too much for them. One thing that it says not to overreact is, as I've said, from being in the SEC for a long time in a different positions as coordinators, different positions, head coach. Man, it ain't just one game in the SEC, George. It's every week.
Right.
And it's just like TCU took on a good opponent the week before, played really well, pick off 2 passes for touchdowns, win the game, and you got to show up again the next week, man, in the SEC. And that's what I don't think a lot of these conferences understand, and a lot of the different environments across the country understand just how deep the SEC really is. I mean, George, Vanderbilt's not close, but yet they won 2 games. So you got to show up every week in this league. And Georgia looks so much better, just so much physically better than TCU last night. And from the quarterback down, gracious, Max looked bug-eyed. He didn't come close to playing with the aggression he played with in the Michigan game. So I feel sorry for them. That goes down with them the rest of their lives, man. That's tough.
I know it is. And we're going to talk about it more later, but I'm going to ask you this one last thing. Do you think those kids walked on that field knowing they were going to get their butt kicked?
I don't think it was just Georgia. I think it was the whole situation was just too much to handle. I really do. I just no aggression whatsoever in the game. Georgia was a part of that. I'm sure they sat and watched them on tape, George, and said, ooh, this bunch is good. But Michigan's good. And they played with Michigan. It had to be for it to get like that. It had to be that it was just too much for them. It was too much for them, as it would be a lot of different people, a lot of different teams.
Okay, we'll get more into that here in a little while. Today is the first day that we have no daily Titans update. However, we got a lot of info to get into that we'll do at 3:00. If you're watching live, give us about an hour and we'll get knee deep into staff changes that Mike Vrabel has made. And then we'll get Watson to write a job description for the next offensive coordinator.
Aren't you nice?
Need wide receivers.
Need offensive linemen.
Need health.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I still say that one quote by Mike yesterday, man. If I've had 2 years of pulled hamstrings, I believe I'd be hunting a job. I think some of those guys aren't going to be around.
no, it does appear that that there is change
Coming.
There's change in the wind,
Yeah.
so to speak. Okay, so Billy, we now I will say this. Tomorrow, Titans State of the Union.
Mm-hmm.
And that's never a good thing. Anytime I ask for a State of the Union, there's a lot of negativity. And there probably will be tomorrow. But it's one you're going to want to hear because we're going to get knee deep into all the options, including, I know this one's crazy, is trading Derrick Henry on the table to be considered?
We'll see.
That we would call radical. Very radical. Even for me, it's a little radical.
George, speaking of radical, Carlos Correa has had a radical offseason.
Whatever.
What a roller coaster ride. He is now finalizing a deal with the Mets, and who knows if this is going to be the final deal.
No, he's not. It's
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Yeah. It was supposed to be the Mets. They flagged his physical, and so that led him back to Minnesota. After weeks of discussion to salvage a deal with the Mets broke down. So this is one of the more wild stories that I can remember in baseball.
Well, I think you've got a couple of factors here. Number one, for all of the pub about Carlos Correa over the years, I think he's overrated. I've always thought he's overrated. I said it earlier this summer. You put overrated with Scott Boras, who I think is a jerk, but I also think he's a very talented jerk and gets a lot of money for his people. Now, I don't think he gives a damn about the game of baseball and doing right by the game, and maybe he shouldn't have to. But as the leading person in that business, Scott Boras could do better than he does. And this is another of these typical cases with Boras. You think back over the last few years at all the little issues that have gone on that don't make any sense. And Scott Boras is right in the middle of all of them. You ever notice that?
Looks like a great situations for the Braves to jump into, George. You need.
I'm glad they didn't.
You need a shortstop.
Correa's overrated. I don't understand what we're doing as far as the Dansby Swanson thing. It made no sense to me. But Correa, to me, is overrated. Good for the Twins if they're able to pull this off. But Scott Boras, to me, is the common denominator of all these kind of problems. Remember the kid at Vandy? Billy?
Kumar Rocker.
Who was his agent?
Boras.
Does this not seem fairly similar?
Sure does.
There's always something going on with Boras. I'll leave it at that.
And it reminds me a little bit of Jerry Jones, a little bit. Just always wants to be in the news. Feels like a little bit of drama always going on. So, George,
I'm not a big Scott Boras fan.
Really?
Oh, really?
I just wanted to get that out there for the record.
I believe I got it.
Okay, good.
I believe I got it.
Good.
We got the memo there. George, I don't know if you're a big Zach Wilson fan either. When asked,
let me say, with each passing day, it's getting harder.
Well, his job security may be getting a little bit harder to retain there in New York. When asked how he'd feel if the Jets were to sign a veteran quarterback, he responded, "I'm going to make that dude's life hell in practice every day."
So, Watson, let me ask you this. Given what has gone on thus far, is there truly a path where he could regain the locker room trust in New York, or would he be better off? Would the Jets be better off if they simply found a place for him to go?
if he stays, he better follow the yellow brick road because it's a long path. He may need to pick up the scarecrow and the line, and because it's a long path, babe. For both sakes, I'd trade him. I'd trade him. I'd get him out of there. Let him have a breath of fresh air. Maybe he'll grow up between the trades, and the Jets just need to move on. Sometimes what happens to these teams? I think, George, and I understand it. They hang on to those number ones just too long. You got so much invested, and you don't want to look bad, and you
don't want to admit you were wrong.
You hang on too long. This one just doesn't feel good. By the way, honestly, Wilson brought it on. I mean, the things he said after those poor games in a row, that's a very immature guy that would come out and say something like that. And I just think there's certain things that are hard to ever get past. There's scars with certain things that go down. That's a scar. I think it'd be best for both. They probably get good draft picks or a player, whatever, for him. I think they would, because the league hadn't turned him down in talent. It's kind of been turned him down in attitude. But attitudes can change, and they do change. I've seen it many times. Maturity is usually, if you don't have that, an attitude can change. If you're a mature guy and you got an attitude like that, it's hard to change it. But he's not a mature guy.
Go back, Billy, to the quote.
Okay, I'm going to make that dude's life hell in practice every day.
What he needed to say was, yeah, they're probably going to bring a veteran, but I'm going to fight like the devil to earn my spot on this roster. That's all he had to say.
What he should have said is, they should bring one in, because I hadn't carried my load yet, but I'm going to. Just let it be.
They don't teach this class at BYU.
Evidently they don't, or he flunked it. They did.
Well, and I think it's a good example of, he was always the guy at BYU. There probably wasn't a whole lot of competition. He was told, he's the guy. You're our quarterback. Now he gets to the NFL and he's not the guy anymore.
Man, if I'm one of those New York franchises, I make sure the guy I bring in as my quarterback's got some maturity about him. That's a tough spot to make it, guys. With that press on you every day, it would be easy to give in and get flustered and say something you shouldn't say. You got to have a different cat to make it in New York. And I just don't think that was a good pick by them. He did not fit. He wasn't ready for that.
It would be one thing if he's making these comments in Nashville or Jacksonville, but he's in New York.
Oh, much worse than even L.A. And they've got the same kind of press, but the New York press is a booger bear, man. And you say one thing, it turns into a mountain. And George knows you can't. New York's different. And I think that ought to be part of who I bring in as my quarterback.
Yes.
Can he handle
all of that?
Yeah.
The tabloids.
Absolutely.
By the way, my phone says that TCU just gave up another touchdown.
What is it now? Is that 79?
79-7.
The over has hit.
Honestly, it could have been 79 real easy.
Yeah, it could have.
That could have gotten real bad.
And Georgia wasn't even. It's not like
move
they were.
on. We're going to get to it later.
Georgia, we got more. This is kind of college/NFL. Jim Harbaugh, of course, still in the news. Michigan coach Harbaugh has interviewed with Denver regarding their coaching vacancy yesterday, which lasted over 2 hours. And I
expect to be back at Michigan. Really?
That's really, if you really break that down, that's saying nothing. I expect to be back. That's not saying I will be back. I expect to be back. Well, until I get offered an NFL job.
I've talked to the AD. He's not wild about me, but I expect to be back.
Yeah, that's saying nothing to me. When I hear coaches make some remark like that, I say, look out. He's got the fillers out.
Do we think the interview was like
it face to face, or was it Zoomed, or what? Do y'all know?
Yeah, I heard it was a Zoom. It was virtual.
Did he wear the good khakis or the ratty ones?
He was probably wearing that Michigan sweater.
Yeah. I need to ask his dad. I'm not sure that his dad's PR skills have filtered down to Jim.
Doesn't look like it.
Jim's a weird bird.
I've never, I know Daddy like you do, and
Yeah.
I know him pretty well. Went against him for quite a few years.
They don't seem alike at all, do they?
No. John more than Jim.
Yeah.
John a little more than Jim, but yeah, you know Mama real well. Is she a lot like the kids or the guys? They're not kids now, but
First of all, she's the biggest sports fan in that family, Jackie Harbaugh.
Yeah.
And I will never forget in the 80s, and I guess into the early 90s, Jim Harbaugh at one point was the Bears quarterback. And the backup, you remember Mike Tomczak?
mm-hmm.
She hated Tomczak. It was absolutely hilarious to listen to. I love Jackie Harbaugh. That is one good woman. It's a great family.
Yeah.
And I feel bad that I've never met either John or Jim. But I'll say this. Jim's got kind of a weird side to him.
Absolutely does.
Moving right along,
George. The Bears are in sole possession of the number 1 pick of this year's draft, and their leadership isn't ruling out drafting a player that would surprise the league, maybe taking Bryce Young or a splash player like that. Of course, they already have Justin Fields, but when asked if he's your guy and if they'll take a quarterback, Ryan Poles didn't give direct yes or no answer. So do they try to take Bryce Young there?
So, Watson, what would you get for Justin Fields?
A lot. You would get a lot, but he's also a really good player, and you're bringing in one that's not proven to be a good player in the NFL. He's also 2 years into the league and knows a lot more than the guy walking in the door is going to know. That would be the stupidest thing I've ever heard, is to trade him just so you can go get another quarterback and you got some stuff for him. Trade the number 1 pick and see what you get for that instead of trading your quarterback away. I think Justin Fields has a great future, man. He has really improved to me, George, from year 1 to year 2.
By the way, that's what
he's on a poor team. He's on a poor team and playing well.
I think that's what they're going to do is they end up trading the number 1 pick and get a boatload for it because somebody out there truly needs Bryce Young.
Oh, no. They all, I mean, not all, but a lot of them do.
The picture
the Titans do.
The picture behind me needs Bryce Young.
Yeah, they do.
Now, do they have the stuff to pull that off? I have no idea. Billy, let's move on.
That'll be for the State of the Union tomorrow.
Yes.
George, more NFL news reports. The Colts have reportedly put in requests to interview Lions OC Ben Johnson and DC Aaron Glenn for their head coaching position. They also requested an interview with Rams defensive coordinator Raheem Morris and Eagles offensive coordinator Shane Steichen. So a lot of potential candidates there for Indianapolis.
Does the name Jeff Saturday come up?
Yes, that's down the road. They're going to speak with Saturday, and they might consider Jim Harbaugh as well,
who, of course, was Indy's quarterback at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we got a lot going on, and we've got a really good show for you. Tony Basilio will join us today by phone, but whether it's phone, megaphone, microphone, whatever, it's always interesting. He's going to join us after the break. Then, during the 3 o'clock hour, we'll get knee-deep into Mike Vrabel's decisions about assistant coaches, some of whom are now looking for work. Plenty going on. You stick around. This is the George Plaster Show.
How am I going to get to work? My car's totaled. Skylar, our team is making a call right now. We'll get you a rental car. Don't worry.
That's a relief.
Call us 24/7. We're here. We're going to help.
Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome. And the reason is simple. I chose Hermitage Strike and Spare. They were amazing. Great food, great bowling, and a staff that's ready to go the extra mile. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from. And for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 615-824-5665.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonnellyTimmons.com.
We have late word from Los Angeles that TCU has held Georgia to a field goal. It's now 82-7, and they were given a standing ovation for that defensive effort. I know it's.
Boy, you're on a roll with this today, aren't you?
It's a little cheap.
Are we going to take this for the next 4 sections that we do here?
This is gonna be all day, Watson.
No.
Let me just ask you this: are we going to hit 100 before you stop?
That's a good question because only once on the Division I level has that ever happened.
Cumberland.
Do you realize? No.
It was, doesn't it? Did Cumberland give up 200?
Didn't Houston hit 100 against somebody under Bill Yeoman?
Yeah, but I think Cumberland gave up the most points in one game.
222. Yeah.
I don't know how you give up 220.
Especially
in the old days when you weren't passing the ball. I don't know how you do that.
You have to suck on defense. For the next year, we need improvement.
Was George Master at quarterback for Cumberland? That was uncalled for.
That was totally uncalled for.
I didn't hear it, but I don't think I want to.
He asked if I was Cumberland's quarterback.
Oh, really?
That's so.
Really? That was a cheap shot.
So let's bring Tony Basilio, Knoxville sports talk show host, to our microphones. Tony, how are you?
I'm doing great, guys. That 222 to whatever the score was in that game, every time I think about that, I always think, what must it have been like to be in the locker room or to be on their if they had a bus back then or their wagon, horse and wagon, what must that have been like?
Well, here's a point to that. Wouldn't 175 have been enough where you would have said, okay, let's just sort of let's call in the horses?
Well, I mean, at some point, I would think you talk about no mercy and hardcore. I mean, what are you doing as an opposing coach?
Watson, like I said, when you get to 175, it seems to me enough is enough. And yet on that particular day, they added 47 more.
I've never been on either side of the 175. I think if I had, there'd have been an ambulance brought to the field. There would have been a coach laid out over on the sideline somewhere.
So,
thank you.
So I want to ask both of you this question. In a day and time where we're trying to sell 12 teams in a college football playoff, was last night a good night for the sport?
You know, George, I think I'll go first. I think if you look at it, I think that the playoffs themselves this year, those 2 games leading up to it, were an excellent advertisement for Give Me More. I think Georgia, when they decided they were dialed in, that was going to happen anyway. And look, in March Madness, there have been teams that were so much better than everybody else that just swept through the deal. So, I would just submit that to you. I mean, Georgia just, people had a tendency to not take Georgia seriously as a dynasty type team because their quarterback was so little and so diminutive and didn't have the strongest arm in the world and wasn't a 5-star player and this, that, and the other. And, that was just my sense of that deal.
Watson, do you have any feeling that it was not a good night for the sport?
Well, it wasn't a good night for the sport, but I don't think it'll affect the playoff, the 12-team playoff. I don't. That's what people want to see. We saw it in these bowl games going way down in views, George.
Yeah.
It's the playoffs, and then everything else really don't matter. That's what it's becoming. So you've nearly got to lengthen the playoffs, because if that's what everybody's starting to think, you don't want it to just be 4 teams. You want it to be more. So I don't think so. I think what it did is it's what's going to happen some, and every time it does, it's going to hurt the little guy. Now, TCU's not a little guy. They were the Big 12, were the best team in the Big 12, even though they didn't win the Big 12 championship. But these group of 5s, one of them gets in, wins one, gets clobbered the next week. They're going to start, and then that 4th team in the SEC makes it to the championship game. It's going to make the Power 5 better conferences get more in, is what I think is going to happen. Mm-hmm. That kind of thing last night helped the SEC big time. Mm-hmm. And that would have put Tennessee in if that happened. Tennessee would have still been playing and would have been one of the 12 for sure. That's what I think. I think it hurt the little guys last night. The underdogs will make it harder to get them in when they start picking. The other thing I think is going to happen, Tony, I think all these schools, when the Big Ten and the SEC expand, which is going to be in a year, all these schools' non-conference schedules are going to start being gimmies. They're going to be gimmies. They want those wins stuck in, and then if they go 6-3 in the SEC, they probably know they're in at that point. So I'm telling you what's going to happen. You're going to expand to 9 games in the Big Ten. You're going to expand to 9 games in the SEC. And the 3 games they play outside that are going to be absolute gimmies, which is going to hurt the sport.
Guys, I think there's a chance to go to a 10-team schedule eventually. Here's why. It allows you to not share that money. You just hoard that money. And you keep it internal, and you create better matchups for television. And, you were talking about the little guy. I think if they really thought this thing through, and you looked at the ratings for these bowl games, which are actually okay. I mean, compared to the rest of sports on television, there are NBA playoff games that would kill to have bowl game ratings. Really. I mean, if you look at those, if you go and look at it, and I think what the group of 5 ought to do is have their own championship.
That's what I think.
They ought to, and you could gamble on it, which is what everybody does now. You could promote it as its own thing. You could have 2 teams holding trophies at the end of the year. And I think people would watch it. I think people would look at it because it's good, solid football. There's nothing wrong with that level of football, especially if it's competitive. They're playing each other in a 12-team type format. I think that would be a wonderful thing. And I guarantee you they could get a TV partner for it the way these television partners are climbing all over each other to pay through the nose and overpay for what's out there with college inventory.
I really don't think there's any doubt that's what's going to happen. I don't know how quickly, Tony, but when you keep making these Power 5 conferences deeper and deeper, and who says they're through? It might be 4 power conferences instead of 5 one of these days. The Big 12 didn't help itself last night. There's no doubt about that. But I think you're right on. I believe that all the way through. They're going to end up, and if I'm a group of 5, because the money now differences in the Power 5 and group of 5s is getting out of sight. So it's near going to be impossible to be able to play with them. Money speaks in so many ways, in NIL, in facilities, in paying coaches, every way. So the group of 5 are going to end up being further and further, talent-wise, less. And I think they're going to get to the point where they want their own national championship before it's all said and done. That's where I think we're headed, guys.
And the sad thing is, guys, if you stop and think about it, the Brett Favre's coming from Southern Miss, that's gone, long gone era. Because now, the minute he shows skill, he is immediately picked off that roster. Like, if you're at that level and you're still trying to play those games and play these teams heads up, or you're a young coach trying to make a name for yourself, however you want to put that, you have no chance, because they're going to take your star players and they're going to pick your roster apart annually. And I mean, we don't even need to know this to know that that's what's going on already, Watson, because the truth is, if you're in Division I football and you're in the middle of the SEC and you're trying to get better, you owe it to yourself to pick those other programs apart, almost like a vulture. You're almost not doing your job if you don't do that.
Especially, Tony, with no rules. I mean,
no rules.
They're going to have to find some way to stop the tampering. And I don't know how, because they're the ones that created, I say they, the NC2A, and they're going to have to find a way to stop the tampering. But you're dead right. A great player cannot stay at Southern Miss, at UAB, or any of them. Pick them. Vanderbilt, maybe. The NIL money, if it's getting to where I hear it is, that it's up into $2, $3, $4 million now. My gracious, I don't know how you stop it. And they're going to have to deal with tampering some way. But how do you say it's tampering now? All these kids are getting agents. And some school calls the agent and says, hey, man, I'm telling you now, if he were to just pop up on the screen, we'd probably have about $3 million sitting there. I mean, there's ways to say it, Tony.
Without saying it.
And they're going to have to deal. And I've got some thoughts about we'll get into later with George. I won't to, but I got some thoughts about the transfer rules. I think there's got to be some heavy rules put on transfer portal. Got to be some heavy rules put on the transfer portal. If you don't, Tony, we're going to end up having about 10 schools, and everybody else is just going to be fighting for their lives. It's going to be a 10 school league of the best. I'm telling you.
You know what's incredible about the transfer thing? There are several guys who have transferred twice now, and nobody's saying a word about it. And you know why? Because the NCAA knows if they challenge that, that'll be one more pillar that falls. So just let these guys go. This, what's the kid's name that went from USC to Georgia to West Virginia, and now he went down to Rice?
JT
That's 4
Daniels.
schools in 4 years.
JT Daniels.
Those of you scoring at home, that's 4 schools in 4 years.
Yep.
And I don't think he's gotten 4 different college degrees. So, I mean, think about that. That guy's making a mockery of this deal.
Tony,
and nobody's saying a word about it, George. Nobody's saying a word about it.
Well, I did last week. I said that he would end up in the Rose Bowl parade, that they would have a float, the transfer portal, and he would be the grand marshal of it.
That's fantastic.
That doesn't say much for
you pulled that one on the day I wasn't on, because I hadn't heard that one.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Oh,
I mean, it is. It's a mockery. 4 in 4 years, and that's okay.
Well,
and
guys, Think about it. The NFL has free agency. You have to go through your contract to be a free agent. College football has free agency, period. Open season every year. You can't keep doing this. You've got to put some rules in to stop this. And or they're going to ruin the sport. If they don't do something, they're going to ruin the sport. The rich get richer, and for sure now they do. I said it back when Coach Kramer put in the BCS. I said, all this is going to do is the rich are going to get richer. And that's my boss. That's a great friend of mine. But I disagreed with it. And now it's gone from that to what we got all the way to what we have now. The rich are doing nothing but getting richer. What's the two schools that have won back-to-back national championships? Alabama and Georgia. The rich get richer.
Watson, you're asking for the NCAA, though, to proact, and all they do is react.
I know.
In fact, they've needed a football commissioner for about 20 years. And you know what? They won't do it. They still need to do it. They need to take those 5 leagues that are going to play this Super League football, unite them, put some guardrails on them so that they behave themselves. But it's not only that. The reason salary caps were invented is so these sports could sustain themselves and not eat themselves. If you go back and look at the NBA when they first did it, they told David Stern, "You're crazy." He did it in order to save his league, because those owners and human nature, we are always going to push the envelope. It's who we are as human beings. We're always going to push it past where we should push it. And unless they put guardrails on this thing, this is going to get to be total, complete anarchy. And look, I like player movement. I don't mind player movement, but the playing on 4 teams in 4 years, what are you learning? I mean, if this is like, most of these guys are never going to play pro. What are you learning? You're learning that if things don't go your way, you just quit and you go to the next stop. And that goes for these coaches too, Watson, because I know for a fact, like here locally and around the SEC, they're calling kids in now and they're saying, hey, there's not a spot for you here next year. A lot more than that was ever done before, because now there's not even a rule on how many you can bring in. Now it's just open season. I'm going to cut the world. And by the way, you're in competitive situations. So that's going to happen. I mean, it's really a mess right now. I know we sound like old men, get off my lawn, but they've got to figure out a way to fix this thing, or they're going to really screw their sport up, because people won't identify with college football anymore, because at that point it ceases being college football.
Tony, does the date November 18th mean anything to you?
Not another like anniversary or something I've forgotten. I'm bad at numbers, George.
Okay. Georgia plays at Tennessee. We're about to put up the schedule of Georgia.
Yes.
Yes. I'm assuming that Georgia will get by. Go ahead and put that up there, Billy. I'm assuming they'll get by UT Martin and a few others.
Look, what did I just say? Look at this schedule.
Yeah.
What's Georgia done?
Non-conference: UT Martin, Ball State, UAB, and Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech
has to be. So they did 3: UT Martin, Ball State.
How do people pay for that? Hey guys, how do people pay for that?
Well,
I mean, would you guys pay a nickel to go? I mean, I wouldn't walk across the street to see one of those games.
No, but it may be the threat. For instance, you know, you're asking almost that same question of, okay, I bought my season ticket. Why do I have to pay to be a part of the Tide Pride Club? Well, because if you don't, there's somebody else out there who will. It's a leverage deal, and right now Georgia has all the leverage. So let me ask both of you this. What do you think are the odds they could three-peat? Let's talk for a second about what landmines are out there for them to try to do it a third year in a row.
Quarterback. They got to hit that. Everything else will be there again next year. Quarterback. They've been spoiled rotten here the last few years with Stetson Bennett now, I'm telling you. So
you think they have to go into the portal?
I don't know. But when the season starts, if they're going to win it all, they got to have a quarterback.
They've got a 4 and a 5-star sitting there. What's so unique about that quarterback, guys, is that he beat out several 4 and 5-star players during his tenure that have been sitting there or that moved out of there when he ascended. And if you look at that, that is the most improbable. But here's the thing. If he had another year left, how many schools in the SEC would take that kid as a starter? Tennessee would. I think Alabama next year probably would. I think LSU probably would. Think about it. You look around the league. The team down there, Florida, is going to have the kid from Wisconsin. I think they would take him. And everybody says he's 5 feet nothing. Tell you what that guy does. That guy manages and wins games. And he makes plays when it matters. He was not very good against Ohio State. But when it mattered, which is what all those really good quarterbacks have the ability to do, when it mattered, that guy led his team down the field and scored. I think people have sold that guy short basically his entire time there.
Yeah.
People hate him. They viscerally hate that guy. And I can't figure out why, because he's, to me, is like the ultimate example of what college football is about. I mean, he's a guy 5 feet nothing, doesn't have the strongest arm in the world, doesn't look like he should be able to do that out there. And people say, well, you know, he looks like this and he acts like that. And I'm going, guy's a pretty good player. And George is really going to miss him next year. I agree with Watson. They're really going to miss him.
Yeah.
Guys,
so
the top 3 teams, George, next year have got question marks at quarterback. Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia. SEC is going to start out a little different looking than it was starting the year this year when all 3 of them had bona fide quarterbacks. And now not a one of them has one. Milton will be the best, but he's not proven by any means. And Alabama and Georgia right now, we don't know. We don't have a clue.
Let me ask both of you this, and then we'll kind of end the conversation. How hard is this going to be just simply on Kirby Smart? The whole, coach, it was great you won 2, but can you three-peat? And, you know, the wear and tear mentally that does to a coach. Watson, let's start that with you.
The wear and tear of when I won a championship and coming back and playing, and the wear and tear of when I had a poor year. There ain't no comparison. The poor year one is a lot harder than the wear and tear on winning a championship. So he's just icing on the cake. He can call it pressure, and it's always pressure. Coaches put more pressure on themselves than any fan could ever put on them. And a lot of people think that's kind of a biased statement. I'm telling you for a fact, coaches put more pressure on themselves than any fan or any program can ever put on them. And I always, when I'd had a good year, it was a whole lot more fun, even though there was anxiety with it, a whole lot more fun coaching that year than it was when I went 3-8 or 4-7 or something.
Tony, you going down the same road Watson did?
Oh, man, I would love to have that guy's first world problems. You know, they're the odds-on favorite. They're the odds-on favorite at plus 250 to repeat as national champion again next year. And the reason that there is they've got a loaded roster. And David Pollock last night was sitting up there with Nick Saban.
Oh,
so hey, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah,
Saban's sitting there and he's basking in the glow of, you know, being the man, and he's up on stage all day, and he did 10 hours of broadcasting. And buddy, at the end of that, he got the rim shot of all rim shots when Pollock looks right, just with him sitting right next to him, it says, Georgia now controls the sport. I bet you that Saban guy went back to his bed and slept about 5 minutes with that reverberating around in his demented head.
And
I
likely,
guarantee you that drove him nuts last night.
Saban gave him the evil eye.
He did give him the evil eye.
He did. He sure did. He sure did.
But he also scheduled a staff meeting for this morning at 6 a.m. So anyway, good stuff. Tony, appreciate it as always.
George, are we not going to talk about the Vandy Tennessee basketball game tonight?
Doesn't deserve to be talked about.
No, just remember this. Remember this. I'm going to lay some good stuff on you here.
Yes.
Under Jerry Stackhouse, Vandy has never won the game. The margin of victory by Tennessee in the Stackhouse era is about 12.5 per game. And yet you can take to the bank tonight after Tennessee mops the floor with Vandy that your guy will come out and talk about just how much he respects.
Great coach. Yep.
Oh, my goodness. I have the world of respect for Jerry Stackhouse. You know why?
Great,
because he's kicking his butt.
Great X's and O's guy.
I love when coaches do that. Hey, when Pitino beat Wade Houston by, what was it, 51 or 61, whatever the number was in 93 before we had the blizzard, he came out and said, I just want to say, I hear the rumbling down there in Knoxville. That man's a great coach over there. Yeah, sure he is, coach. You just beat him. You just beat him by 61 points. The thing I love about Stackhouse, though, which I'm sure you love as well, is he doesn't even play, but yet he leads the SEC in blocks every year. There's never been a coach that goes on social media and blocks people like that guy.
He's not blocking me because I'm not making the attempt.
And I control your Twitter.
Well, that's a second point. Maybe. Anyway, let's put it this way, Tony. I don't see Vandy winning tonight.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
It'll be. Do Tennessee fans care about tonight, Tony?
The get-in Knoxville is $2.
No way.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a 9:00 start though, 9 Eastern, which is that's another thing. Why can't we value fans in this day and age? We're asking more from them now financially than ever before. Can you value fans a little bit? 9:00 Eastern start on a winter night?
Let's bring that up next week. That's a topic in and of itself. Tony, thanks as always.
Thank you.
By the way, he's dead on right about that. We'll go to the break, and then we'll get a few more of Watson's random thoughts on the title. It's Georgia 2 in a row. Now they try to three-peat. Do they negotiate with Pat Riley to get the trademark? Stay tuned.
Hockey in Music City just hits different. It's one big honky-tonk party. It's the sea of gold in the crowd. The goals, the saves, the celebrations. It's an experience like no other. Don't miss a minute of the action this season. Visit NashvillePredators.com/tickets to get your seats today. That's NashvillePredators.com/tickets. And we'll see you at Bridgestone Arena.
I know it's getting colder. You're not thinking about golf. However, if you're planning an event for next year, let me suggest golf through Riverside Golf Links. The course has improved dramatically. It's perfect for hosting a corporate or a charitable outing. They've got everything in place to make your event a rousing success. To get more info, call 615-847-5074 or go online to riversidegolflinks.com. Welcome to John English Antique Sports and Cards, located at 204 East Depot Street in beautiful downtown Shelbyville, Tennessee. Their phone number is area code 931-492-4304. John, obviously, I've been blown away by what I've seen at your place. I've now been there 3 times. But for the person who's never been, what should they expect?
Well, we have a 3,000 square foot store, George. Half of it is vintage cards in all sports. And then half of the store is, a lot of people call it the museum, where there's a lot of early equipment and just the history of sports in general: baseball, football, basketball, golf, tennis, and other items.
When somebody comes in there that you know is a big sports fan, what is their normal reaction?
Well, I think that they're pleasantly surprised. And, of course, being in Shelbyville, Tennessee, which is a very a small town that you would never expect a shop like we have to be in. So they're kind of, I don't want to say blown away, but as I said, pleasantly surprised.
Welcome back into the George Plaster Show. It's now time for no stat of the day, George?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. Wow.
Go ahead, George.
Pilot error.
Huge error on me. That's my bad.
Hey, Watson.
Hey, what?
Show prep. You ready?
Show prep. Let's go.
Okay. Here's Georgia's schedule for next season. UT Martin. By the way, that game is not at Martin. Come on, that was supposed to be funny. Ball State, again, not at Ball State. South Carolina, UAB. So they basically spend most of the first half of the season at home. At Auburn, Kentucky, that's the first half. At Vandy, Florida at the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville, Missouri, Ole Miss, at Tennessee, November the 18th, at Georgia Tech, November the 25th. When you look at that schedule, there's not a lot stopping them from getting in the playoff again.
No. I still say it's all on the quarterback. If they've got that guy on the team, they're on their way because everything else is good. Lord, they were putting third teamers in better than the TCU guy last night.
Yeah.
I mean, there were third team defensive linemen coming in the game better than a TCU starter. So it's unbelievable, the talent level they have. It's all about quarterback, 100% quarterback with them.
Okay, so is that a deal where when all the celebration ends, that Kirby gets the staff together and says, I want your opinions. Can we win big with this guy? How does that go down?
I think that was done 2 months ago, to be very honest. So they're not dabbling in the transfer portal, and I don't think there's one out there that's good enough to be Georgia's guy to take them to a national championship myself. So we'll see. I think they already know that answer, and I think they think he's on their team. I think they think he's there. And what's happening today, George, these freshmen are coming in, all graduating early now, all of them, especially quarterbacks. And they're coming in January. So it's not a true freshman even when they start the season. He's had a good spring practice and all of summer. And now you work with the kids in the summer, which didn't used to be that way. These coaches now can work with the kids in the summer. So you're not really a true freshman anymore. The true freshman is the guy that walks in the summer, and that ain't happening anymore. So I think Georgia thinks they got him. We'll see who it is. Alabama's in the same boat, and they haven't gone transfer portal, so they think they got theirs. And it could be, speaking of UT Martin, Coach Simpson's son is one of the quarterbacks vying for that spot at Alabama, who I coached at Mississippi State. I coached him, and his son is a really good player. And then they got, is it Kilroy? And that's the way you say it. And then I think there's one more.
Milrow.
Huh? And it Kilroy, the kid that started for Bryce Young a couple of times.
Jalen Milrow.
Milrow, not Kilroy. Milrow.
Yeah.
So they think they got him, or they would have dabbed in the portal. I think they did dab in the portal. I can't prove it, but I'm not sure they didn't dab up toward Chapel Hill. Tell you the truth. But can't
finally
come
out.
That's not coming from my brother, and it's not. It's just rumor mill that Alabama was one of the ones that kind of had their feelers out a little bit. Probably not true, but just throwing a rumor out there, not saying it's fact at all.
We'll give you season tickets and pay for your Tide Pride membership.
Yeah, buddy. That's it.
Okay, so off of what you see there, it would be a real surprise if Georgia does not make the college football playoff.
Well, I think they're going to Tennessee second to last game. That'll probably decide it.
That'll be the game.
Because
But
I think Tennessee's going to be right there again.
But
And it's
they
much
could
later in the
lose.
year this year.
they could lose and still get in.
Well, I don't know.
Well, it's happened, but it's not good to lose late.
Right.
It's not good to lose late now, and you second to last game of the year and you lose and you don't make the conference championship. Alabama did that. Tennessee did it. Neither one of them got in. Of course, Tennessee ended up losing. Well, both of them lost the second one. So that's probably not a good scenario there. But I just don't think it's good to lose late in the year and not even win your division and get in. We got one more year of 4, right? And then it goes to 12 the next.
Yes, unless something happens this summer.
Yeah, which very well could.
Might.
Very well could.
Okay. When we come back, then we'll go to stat of the day. Then we'll get into the Titans coaching roster shakeup. So stick around. We got plenty more coming. Do not touch that dial.
Hey, thank you for meeting with me today. The insurance company has made an offer.
Already? Wow.
They've offered you the entire policy.
Thank you, Blair.
You're so welcome.
Welcome to John English Antique Sports and Cards, located at 204 East Depot Street in beautiful downtown Shelbyville, Tennessee. Their phone number is area code 931-492-4304. John, obviously, I've been blown away by what I've seen at your place. I've now been there 3 times. But for the person who's never been, what should they expect?
Well, we have a 3,000 square foot store, George. Half of it is vintage cards in all sports. And then half of the store is, a lot of people call it the museum, where there's a lot of early equipment and just the history of sports in general. Baseball, football, basketball, golf, tennis, and other items.
When somebody comes in there that you know is a big sports fan, what is their normal reaction?
Well, I think that they're pleasantly surprised. And, of course, being in Shelbyville, Tennessee, which is a small town that you would never expect a shop like we have to be in. So they're kind of, I don't want to say blown away, but as I said, pleasantly surprised.
All right, let's try this again. It's now time for Stat of the Day, and it is brought to you by John English Antique Sports and Cards in Shelbyville, Tennessee, 204 East Depot Street. They're open Tuesdays through Fridays from noon to 5, and then Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5. You can call them at 931-492-4304. That's 931-492-4304. All right, let's see what Michael's got cooked up for us today. A little announcement. Michael is in studio, so we may
it's
have
a big
him,
moment for the show.
Yeah, may have him chime in on this one. Who knows? But let's see what he's got. 5 college football head coaches have won multiple national titles at their alma mater since 1936. Who are they?
Well, we know that Kirby is one of them. We know that Bear Bryant is one of them. We know that Frank Leahy was one of them at Notre Dame.
Yeah. Did either one of the Nebraska coaches graduate from Nebraska?
I don't think so. To be honest, excuse me, that wasn't real good broadcasting there.
I mean, Steve Spurrier is one of them. He won 2, didn't he?
Well, let me think that through just a second. He beat Virginia Tech and beat them bad for his first national title.
And he beat Florida State.
Oh,
After losing to him during the season, he came
yeah.
back.
By the way,
beat
the
Florida
rats
State.
are scurrying over here, so it's possible that we have stumped them.
We have nothing to say, George.
Really?
Y'all are on your own.
Okay, one or two of them. One of them's back in the 1840s.
You've got three.
Had beer in his background, and I don't remember his name, but I think Watson's right. Spurrier is in there. So let's go.
And it's also multiple national titles. So, I mean,
Meaning
Philip
more
Fulmer
than
won
one.
but he didn't win multiple titles.
Good catch, Watson.
So, okay, let's ring it up. Let's see what we got.
All right, let's see what we got here. You got the three, Kirby, Bear, and Frank Leahy, George, but Bernie Bierman and Red Blake. I have no clue who Bernie Bierman and Red Blake are.
Red Blake was at West Point, right?
I think you're right.
He won a couple national titles at West Point.
Oh, yeah. West Point was real good in the day, but long before you were even thought about.
Still running the triple option?
No, there wasn't no triple option. That's
Not
way
yet.
past the triple option.
Wing T?
That was the old wing tee, all of that stuff. So Steve Spurrier didn't win too.
Well, hold on a second. I'm looking that up because I'm not sure they're
You're
right
trying
about
to
this one.
Stump Michael while he's
Well, I'm not convinced. How many national championships did Steve Spurrier win? Oh. Okay, well, we'll move on. He won one.
It was Florida
I
State.
think it was. No, I think it was Virginia Tech that he beat.
Was he the coach at Florida when Nebraska absolutely killed him? Who was the coach at Florida when Nebraska with
Frazier
that killed him? It was like last night. It was bad. 58-14 or something like that.
Or like 62-14.
Well, whatever.
Okay.
Hit your mute button, George. I got to teach you how to do that.
I have hit it, but Billy,
it didn't work.
when Billy has his mic on, you can hear.
Oh, so we got to have a coordinated mute hit there.
Well, I don't know.
Come on, Billy, get with the program, man.
Exactly.
That was on me.
Okay. It's good somebody else take the blame. Okay. So let's get to the business at hand, which involves the Titans coaching changes. Not that I'm all that interested in three of them, but we are certainly interested in the Todd Downing situation. Watson, all along, the Titans allowed the DUI situation to go undiscussed. You know, we're leaving it with the league. Do you think that first of all, that Mike Vrabel had already made the decision and sort of said, I'm not going to pile on with this?
I don't know. I just felt like when it was over, he had to do this. There's just too much there. And, but I think he would have done it without the DUI myself, George. I do. I think it's just time. And he's got to decide philosophically where he wants to go before he hires a coordinator, to me. And I just and that DUI really bothered me, that nothing happened. Nothing at all happened. I've said that to you multiple times, and that the league didn't do anything, that the Titans didn't do anything. I just thinking you're in the public eye like that, you can't let that go. There's too many young kids that watch this stuff, and so I didn't like that, but that's not what we're talking about. But I don't think he had a choice. I don't think he had a choice. I think he had to make that move. Funny that
we've lost Watson.
Oh, this is not good. We'll get back to him with funny and then fill in the blank. We'll get him back up here in just a second. So Watson said something very interesting. I don't know how many of you caught it, but that Mike Vrabel has got to figure out his philosophy of offense. And I guess I'm sort of sitting there saying, wait a minute, has he not long since figured it out? Or is it Watson saying he's got to change his offensive philosophy? Watson, you were about to say funny it something. Go ahead and fill in that blank.
Yeah, I think he has to absolutely decide what he wants to do philosophically before he goes and hires a coach.
Don't you think he's already done that?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, based on the way they play, isn't that the way he wants to play?
It may be, but I do think he seems to be good at looking in a mirror and being honest with himself. I think he does. He is good about that. And I just don't. Jimmy Johnson said it best Sunday. He said, you do not score touchdowns in the NFL if you can't pass the football really well. And that right there was the quote of the day to me. And Tennessee is not going to win a Super Bowl if they can't drop back and pass the ball when they need to drop back and pass the ball, George, and pass protection. Isn't it amazing that they let the coordinator go, they let the line coach go, and they let a secondary coach go, and I'm not sure what the other one coached. But of the four were the three things that we discussed all year long that they were having trouble with. And so is he want to stay with this 20 throws a game and be ultra conservative and just keep handing it to Derek and keep the games close and win them late? They won all those close games the year before and were the number one seed. This year they lost most of those one-score games and lost 7 in a row. So he's sitting there and I know he's doing it. He's looking in the mirror and say, where do we want to go with this offense? Are we going to keep Derrick Henry? Or are we still going to go through Derrick Henry? You can do that. But at the same time, you can also be more of a wide open offense than they've been, especially, well, honestly, the last 3 years in a row to me. They've been the most conservative offense in the league. He's won games doing it. So that's what I'm anxious to see. He may not come out and say that to us, George, but we're going to know it by who he hires unless he moves Kelly up. He's got a guy on the staff that's been a coordinator before. If he moves him up, that won't tell us where he's headed. But if he hires from the outside, the guy that he hires is going to kind of tell us where he's headed.
From a PR standpoint, can he really go in staff again? I don't think he can.
I don't think Mike gives a rat in a PR standpoint. He is the less PR dude I've seen of anybody in the league. And he's going to do what he thinks is best. I don't think he cares one iota. And I mean that. I'm not exaggerating it. I don't think he thinks PR whatsoever. He thinks, how am I going to win football games next year offensively? That's what I think he's thinking.
Okay, then let me try it a different way. They're in the business of selling tickets. Okay, they had a commercial last night during the title game. Number one, it's become a very soft market to begin with. People who are okay buying, but their life doesn't depend on it, may be sitting there going, they lost 7 in a row. Why the hell should I get involved in this? If it's not a PR issue, is it a ticket selling issue?
All that in his mind, in my personal opinion, comes from winning, period. Not how you win, just win. And so I don't think he's thinking about, I got to sell more tickets. He's not thinking, I got to be more exciting where people get more excited about us. He's thinking, how am I going to win in the NFL next year? That's it, 100%. That's why I'm not sure Mike can go to college, because a lot of that has to play into the thought process in college. Look at Vanderbilt, sitting there where they are. Yeah, they start winning, but they also need to win with a little excitement because they're taking on the Preds and the Titans. It's a different world. And so he don't care. In my opinion, he's one of those few that I don't think does care. The only way he will care if his boss comes in and says, Mike, I'm going to keep you, but I want more excitement. I want to see the ball thrown around more. Now, I'm not sure she would do that, but I think that's the only way he's going to change whatever he wants. I think he's going to lean more toward being more wide open. That's what I think. I think he will go more that route than he's been. But we're going to see. And we're also going to see George, and this is tomorrow. I'm leading a little bit, but he fixed the defense. He didn't fix the offense. They didn't fix the offense. They fixed the defense. They fixed the special teams. They got the best punter in the league. He's brand new. They got one of the better defenses in the league, and they finished the year with a great defensive night. He knows he's got to get better at pass defense, but his defense he fixed, and they're deep, but the offense wasn't fixed. They had no offensive linemen. They didn't take care of Taylor Lewan. They didn't take care of Ben Jones, who's been hurt a lot now, 33 years old, and they let A.J. Brown go. They did not fix the offense.
Vrabel also said they've got to get a lot faster. You didn't really see a whole lot of speed this year with the Titans. Do they go after a smaller running back to where they can get it to him out of the backfield to where maybe Henry's not there in a year or two, and then he sort of becomes the number one back, and then you've already shifted your offense?
Well, they've got Hilliard, Hilliard is a really good third down back, and I think one of the better ones in the league. He just got hurt, and they lost him. But they did that with Evans. It didn't work out. They went and got that guy to be a speed guy to go with Derrick Henry. He didn't make it. He couldn't stay on the field with injury. And I don't know, Billy. I don't know. And how long does he think Derrick Henry is going to be there? Because Derrick is not a great back to be spread all over the field with. He's not. He's not that style. So do you stay with what they're doing? Do they think they got Derrick for 2 more years? Do they think they got him for 1 more year? Or does Mike think it's time to make the switch now? I don't think it's far-fetched that they're thinking what to do with Derrick Henry. I'm not saying they're going to let him trade him. I'm just saying I think they're thinking, what do we do with Derrick Henry? I believe they're thinking that.
Okay, let me try a couple of things here. Let's say that they open this up to a lot of people around the league to come in and talk. First of all, coordinator jobs pay pretty darn good, which is the biggest reason somebody's going to want this job. Isn't somebody going to walk in and say to Mike, listen, no offense, but why the hell is Derrick Henry never on the field on third down? If I'm the offensive coordinator, he's going to be out there. I don't care because I know what an ability to use him as a decoy is, even if he couldn't catch a cold. Isn't he going to hear that from somebody?
Oh, yeah. He heard it last year. And they did do better with that. But, George, what was the last play of the season offensively?
Well, it was throw it short and hope
who caught
for a miracle.
Who caught it?
Who did?
Haskins. Henry wasn't on the field.
Right, which makes no sense.
And he was 7 yards from the first down when he caught the ball. If that's Derrick Henry, that first down might have been made. He's prone to run through tackles, and he wasn't on the field on that play. What was the last play of the game the year before when we lost in the second round and we had the bye?
I don't know. I was frozen.
Interception. And the first play of the game was interception also.
It was an interception tip. Was Derrick Henry in the game? No, he was not in the game on that play. So if you're going to keep Derrick Henry, they need to rest him on first and second down every once in a while. I wouldn't be taking him out on all those third downs like they do. I think that's a major mistake.
And Watson, real quick here, George. I thought they found something with him in the screen game that they hadn't really tried to do over the years a whole lot. I mean, they got it to him in the screen game where they would fake the handoff to him, and then they'd throw a little, Michael's probably more astute at this than me, but whatever you call it, a bubble, a quick little out screen, and everybody would lose him. And they didn't. I don't think they did that enough.
No, they got to where they wanted to throw it to Okonkwo late in the year on the screen.
Right.
He was the screen guy late in the year. I just think if you're going to put that kind of money in Derrick Henry and you're going to bring him back again, you got to use him in all the ways. Rest him on normal downs. There's nothing wrong with him missing 3 or 4 plays in a row as the starting tailback on first down and second down. it seems like they want to rest him on third down. I think it's a big mistake.
Watson, I don't think anybody is going to have a problem distinguishing between Todd Downing and Bill Walsh. Nobody's looked at Todd Downing and said, man, that guy's brilliant. Now he's been in two different NFL situations, and in both, fan bases have wanted to run him out of town. It's easy to say, well, the second half of games was so bad. Failure to make adjustments. It's an easy one to throw at him and say Todd Downing doesn't know how to make adjustments. Now, let me ask it more practically. Is it truly Todd Downing, or is some of that Vrabel?
Don't know the answer to that, but Mike does. And if he was involved in it, then he's got to get out. And if he's smart, he will, because I think he is smart, and I think he's willing to say, this isn't good. I got to get out of this. And I don't know. No, Mike never said anything in defense of Todd Downing, and he never said anything ugly about Todd Downing. And that's Mike's way, which I think is pretty honorable during a season. He just don't take shots at anybody, players, coaches. He don't do it. And I think he got that from Bill Belichick, to be very honest. And so I don't know the answer to that. I've wondered that. Is this guy just keep being this conservative, or is he being told this is what we're going to do? I don't know. I think letting Todd go, we will know, though, by what he brings in. And I don't know that we'll know there's going to be a change. We won't know if Mike was involved or not, but we'll know there's going to be a change. If he brings a Cliff Kingsbury in here as the offensive coordinator, there's going to be a change. That's not Cliff's background whatsoever. And so just watch who he hires. And if he moves Kelly up, which is the only one on the staff he can do that with, if he moves Kelly up, I don't think there's going to be a lot of change. Might be a little more wide open. But George, they make – in the passing game, they make too many mistakes. I went through yesterday the fumble and how the protection broke down. The miss of that protection that caused that fumble is a simple thing. That wasn't complicated. It was a simple thing, and it cost them. They win the game, in my opinion. I don't think the Jags are going down the field and scoring. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was rocked. He was not playing well. I don't think they go down and score. And the only way they lose, it's the way they lost it. They give it back to them. And it was a protection breakdown. Yeah, quarterback, maybe center. But who's in charge of all that? And I know we can say, well, Josh is new. He was only in the system for 17 days. Josh Dobbs would know that look and, hey, did we cover this guy coming off the flanks to my left, or did we not? And if they didn't, he has to cover it by by throwing a ball within a 6-yard route area. And he didn't do that. He threw it a 10-yard route area, and you can't throw a hot 10 yards deep. It's impossible to do. Impossible unless it's just a catch fade route. That's the only ball that can really go past 10 yards that you could throw off of a hot. So that loss was technical. It wasn't something the Jags did or whatever. It was technical that they lost that game. That's hard to take to me, George.
Watson, obviously we'll get knee-deep into this tomorrow, where we're going to spend more than an hour on what I'll call an end-of-the-season Titans State of the Union. The one thing where you and I might disagree here, he can't hire Kelly.
Oh, I'm not saying he can. I'm saying that's the only option he's got on the staff.
No, I understand that.
I wouldn't hire him.
You have come with the, I don't think he cares what anybody thinks. And look, that's a strength of Vrabel's. There's no question. He doesn't care what I think. But his boss may start to care what I think if I say, screw this, I'm tired of boring football.
Well, that's what I said.
Do it.
That's exactly what I said. The only way he would listen to anybody is his boss. Now, I don't know if she's knows well enough, but she sure knows well enough to know that we got to pass the ball better sitting watching all those games. That'd be the only way I think Mike doesn't do what Mike wants to do. I just wonder what Mike wants to do. That's still my biggest question. I don't know. Does he want to loosen up more? Does he understand now we've got to throw and catch football better if we're going to win championships? And if he does that, then we're going to see a big difference come the guy he hires. And his whole philosophy comes off of one hire, in my opinion. It's this offensive coordinator hire.
Boy, you got that right.
He's really close with Bill O'Brien. I've heard some rumblings there.
Yeah, so. He's very close. He was worked for Bill. He was
right.
Bill's defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And he played for Bill. Bill was on the staff 2 years when he was with the Patriots. So, and that would be a great hire to me.
It's an easy rumor to make up.
Huh? I'm sorry.
It's an easy rumor to make up, and you could go one step farther. If you have that happen, does O'Brien then say to Vrabel, you got to really look at trading up to get us Bryce Young?
Might. I've read quote after quote from Bill O'Brien. He loves him.
Yeah.
He absolutely loves him. So, yeah, I would think that might be part of even the conversation before he brings him here.
You bring something up that's really interesting, George, because you got to believe Bill O'Brien. He may want out of Alabama at this point with all the – feels like Alabama fans have been hot on his heels.
Especially with this morning's 6 a.m. staff meeting.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I don't know that. Would I be shocked? Not totally. Stay tuned. We'll talk NFL playoffs next, so don't go anywhere. Forget the fact that Sir Speedy Music City is owned by my BGA classmate James Warren. Their work stands on its own merit. James and his staff do incredible work, as evidenced by the huge banners at the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night. If you're looking for quality to help your marketing and business communications, and you want it at a reasonable price, these are your folks. Call them at 615-832-9511 or go to print at sirspeedymusiccity.com. And be sure to tell them Plaz sent you. Jody Jones has as nice a dental facility as you'll find anywhere. Let's go in and take a look. Are you in the market for a new dentist? Maybe you're new to Nashville? Well, the place to go is Jody Jones Dentistry at 55 Music Square East, and their new facility is absolutely state-of-the-art. Jody mixes quality with comfort for the perfect dental experience. He's trusted for his creative design and committed to both the function and aesthetics of your smile. Jody is simply the total package. Don't wait. Make an appointment now at 615-259-5100. Well, as all of you know, the NFL playoffs are now set, and TV has done their thing, and we now know where it all is headed. So, Billy, put that big on the screen.
Oh, you want it full screen?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we know that both Kansas City and Philly have the first round bye. Hard to believe the Titans were in this same setting a year ago. Watson, the game that has the smallest odds is Chargers going to Jacksonville to face the Jaguars. What's your gut feeling on a game that is virtually a pick 'em?
Jags, they're hot. I'm going Jags. I was disappointed in their offense the other night, but the Titans have a way of doing that to you. I don't know what it is that Mike and them do, but they fluster quarterbacks. And I watched Patrick Mahomes get flustered against them this year. They were very lucky to beat us, and Patrick beat us with his legs. But I think the Jags feel good. The place will be wild just like it was Saturday night, and I think the Jags beat the Chargers, even though the Chargers quarterback is really good.
Okay, the second game in the AFC looks like it's got this big question mark around it.
Yeah.
Baltimore at Cincinnati, and it would appear to everybody that it comes down to whether Lamar Jackson is healthy or not. First of all, if he isn't, then Baltimore's got to play one of these backups. And I'm not saying the backups are horrible, but they're not anything close to Lamar Jackson. So, Watson, I'll ask this question. Given that he has not practiced in about a month and 10 days, even if he does play, can he be anywhere near what he needs to be?
I don't think so. I really don't, because the timing of throws, he's not a natural thrower in a lot of ways. And so he turned himself into a good thrower, but it was rep after rep after rep with players, timing of cuts, all those type things. Now he's had none of that. George, I don't think the Ravens can beat these guys unless the Bengals just blow it. And think about Jackson. He did not sign a contract before the season started. Boy, had this cost him some money in the end by not doing that, with losing this many games with injury. It's going to be interesting to watch that.
Boy, is it ever. Cincinnati looks really dangerous right now. They look like a team nobody in their right mind wants to play.
They have the physicality, George, and they have the passing game and with the skill with it. And that's a great combination this time of year. They can line up physically and run right at you. Offense and defensive lines are really, really good. And the Bengals, to me, are the bunch that I'm watching close, because I think they can beat Kansas City and the Bills myself.
I feel awful saying this, but the horrible Damar Hamlin situation, making that at a neutral site instead of most likely, if the Bengals win that Buffalo game, they're the higher seed, right? And they host. But this way, it's a neutral site. It's fair game. I mean, neither team will have the home field advantage there. So no. I think that should play a factor.
It should. These playoffs, and they get in these home field advantages, it seems like the pressure's on the home team. We're starting to see more and more visiting teams win those games. So I don't know. I get to that point, I think the best team wins.
Last one in the AFC is Miami at Buffalo. And I think we all know what it is we know, which is Miami's holding out this ridiculous hope about Tua. First of all, Tua shouldn't even be up for consideration after a second concussion. But in Miami right now, he is. Watson, I look at Buffalo, and what I saw defensively against New England worries me a little bit. As good as Buffalo is, I don't think they're all that good on the defensive end.
Well, they give up. The running game has hurt them all year, and they're into their third safety. Micah Hyde was the starter, and then they lose number 3, and he's gone. And now they're playing with a third teamer, so that alone is not a good. And Micah Hyde was the leader of that secondary, but. My gosh, Josh Allen is so good in one games, just a one-game deal. Wouldn't you love to see at least get late in these playoffs with Mahomes, Joe Burrow, or Josh Allen playing each other? I hope we get to see all that happen, because, man, what 3 great young quarterbacks they are. And that 4-5's got 2 great young quarterbacks too. So it's becoming a quarterback league, guys.
Here's what I do know. Miami with Tua scared the crap out of Buffalo in mid-December. didn't win the game, but was up late in Buffalo in a snowstorm. Without Tua, I don't see it.
I don't think he'll play. I hope and pray he doesn't play.
Yeah.
But Miami is really good on defense, George. Really good. Might be the best defense on that board right now. So they're going to be in games just because of their defense. I think Buffalo wins, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout.
In the NFC, let's go to the Cowboys in Tampa. Watson, Dallas having to go on the road to be where they want to be ultimately. They got to win a bunch of road games. This is one they could win, but Tampa's probably sitting there saying, you know what? They make a lot of dumb mistakes, and we can take advantage of all that. And I just think if Dallas loses in Tampa, Mike McCarthy's era is over.
You know, I was going to ask that. What do you think? Because Jerry Jones came out today and said he's my coach, whether we win that game or not. That's a kiss of death when you say that. I think that loss against the Commanders really hurt them. That hurts the confidence level. I don't care what you say. And you're going to play Tom Brady in his home place. I think that game hurt them bad, George. And there's been so inconsistent, but so have the Bucs. But I think they'll step it up. Now, I'm not saying the Bucs are going to go very far, but after what happened in Washington, I don't think they beat the Bucs. Not this time.
There's something not right in Dallas.
Something. I can't figure it out. They're so inconsistent. So inconsistent.
They just seem mentally weak.
Oh.
I mean, they're penalties, turnovers.
Yeah, they play some dumb football.
Oh.
And I mean, do you put it on McCarthy? Maybe, but it feels like an entire organization issue. I don't know. I can't put a finger on it.
Isn't he in charge of the organization?
Yes, but I have a hard time putting a lot of it on McCarthy.
Well, okay. Here would be, and Watson, you chime in on this. Okay, for the last year and a half, this has been the big bugaboo in Dallas. A coach has to set a tone that, look, we're not going to tolerate this anymore. And if you don't believe it, the one place I can affect you is playing time. And yet this stuff continues to go on in Dallas. And the common denominator is head coach is Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, if they lose and it's not pretty, I don't think he'll be back. And I'm not saying that'll happen. This team was 12-4 going into the Washington game. They had one of the best records in the league. If Philadelphia had lost and they'd won, they win the division. So I mean, they won games. But I think Billy, it starts at quarterback. When your quarterback's inconsistent, your team's inconsistent. And Dak has just been very inconsistent. He seems to be Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. He plays a great game, and then he plays an awful game. Very seldom do you just see him play a good game. It's either dynamite or awful, and that's not going to take you very far in the playoffs, guys.
Yeah, when you get to mid-January, you need 3 killers in a row.
And you need 3 consistent games in a row. Just good, consistent football. Hadn't been Dallas all year, and yet they've won 12 games in the toughest division in the NFL.
Giants at Minnesota. Watson, this is the road team that I think is going to make the breakthrough. I just don't think Minnesota plays anywhere near good enough defense. And I think that record, look, you have to hand it to them because they've won all the close games. But I don't trust the Vikings.
No, I don't either. They seem to choke big games. And this is a big game. And they're at home. They're playing a team that they're supposed to beat. And I think you got to beat the Giants. It's the opposite of the Cowboys, George. The Giants play consistent football, and they make you beat them. They don't make a lot of mistakes. And they're not pretty all the time, but they don't make a lot of mistakes. And that's the way I think they'll go to Minnesota and play. And didn't they beat Minnesota just a few weeks ago?
They lost by a field goal.
61-yard field goal.
On a 61-yard field goal. So they know they can play with these guys. And was it in Minnesota?
Yes.
That's what I thought. So, George, I'm not sure you hadn't picked the right one for the road teams. I like the Giants because of all those teams up there. I'm not sure there's a team on that board that doesn't make you beat them more than the Giants.
And that running game will travel with Saquon Barkley and then Daniel Jones with some of those bootleg play actions. That's their bread and butter right there.
They could use a massive Barkley game.
Yep.
Watson, down at the bottom, Seattle got in by virtue of Green Bay's gag at home against Detroit. To me, San Fran is the one NFC team that the Buffaloes and the Kansas Cities and the Cincinnatis honestly don't want to play.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. I think if you took all the votes on the NFC side, they'd all pick that team. I don't want to play them. I think this comes down to Purdy, and does he handle playoffs well or not? We don't know that yet. He's playing really good. What did they say on TV the other day? He's playing pretty ball.
He's playing pretty good.
He's playing pretty good.
So I think it comes down to him. But of the draw, this is the one team they'd rather play over anybody on that board. I can tell you that right now. So I don't think Seattle, even though Geno Smith has played really good football, he hadn't been playing those 49ers every week. So I think this one is, unless Purdy plays pretty bad, I think they beat them 2 touchdowns or more.
Watson, how long can they just ask him to manage the game? I mean, is that just first round, second round? Because you got to believe if they get to a matchup versus Brady or, an offense, you look at the quarterbacks on that side, they're not world beaters. So, I mean, how long can you just ask him to manage the game through the playoffs?
He's been better than a manager, though, Billy, really. He's played better than manage the games. He's made plays. But my gracious, who has better players surrounding a quarterback?
Nobody.
Than San Francisco. Nobody. I mean, they've got them. They've got them everywhere, and a great defense to go on top of that. So
just don't make mistakes.
I think he plays good, and I think San Francisco's going to be around for a while.
Yeah, don't worry about Tampa because they're not.
No.
You don't believe in Tampa?
No. Good.
I don't think they can get past the Eagles.
No, that pile of mush they call an offense.
Gerber's
baby food. I've used that one before.
We'll go to the break this year on them. Yeah.
I'm sorry. What was that?
I said more than once this year you used that on the Bucks.
Oh, yeah. Gerber's baby food. We'll go to the break. Watson, I've got a winner tonight.
Don't ask me.
No, I've got one.
Okay.
I've got one, and it ain't TCU. Stick around.
How am I going to get to work? My car's totaled.
Scholar, our team is making a call right now. We'll get you a rental car. Don't worry.
That's a relief.
Call us 24/7. We're here. We're going to help.
Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome. And the reason is simple. I chose Hermitage Strike and Spare. They were amazing. Great food, great bowling, and a staff that's ready to go the extra mile. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from. And for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 615-824-5665.
As the trusted premier custom home builder in Middle Tennessee, Donnelly Timmons has over 20 years of experience in the industry. Whether you're looking to build your dream home or renovate your current home, their team will ensure that every client and every remodel is unique, luxurious, and completed on time within budget. Founders Dustin Timmons and Joey Donnelly have over 25 years of construction experience in the Nashville area. Together, they have completed projects in Forest Hills, Oak Hill, Green Hills, Franklin, and Brentwood. Dustin and Joey believe that communication is the most important aspect of all construction projects. Therefore, they personally manage each project themselves and are involved in job site activities on a daily basis. Their commitment to quality and integrity has earned them an outstanding reputation among their clients. Contact them to set an appointment for a free consultation or to view some of their completed projects. Give them a call at 615-456-7983 or log on to DonleyTimmons.com.
Final segment here on this Tuesday. It's time for Plaster's Bet of the Day. What is it? 3 losses in a row, George?
That will all change tonight.
So you're confident?
Oh, I'm very confident.
Okay. See if we get to book it today here on Bet of the Day. It's brought to you by Bart Durham Injury Law. They are lawyers that you can trust. Give them a call at 615-242-9000. That's 615-242-9000 or log on to bartdurham.com. All right, let's check out what happened last night. Well,
yeah,
we don't need to.
No,
we don't. Let's don't go there because he's just going to harp on me. So
TCU just scored.
They get to 100?
Yeah, they got a rouge. So it's now 82-8.
Okay.
8.
Yeah. Isn't that a term, a rouge?
I don't know what that is.
Watson, isn't that a term in some sport?
I've heard it, but I can't put it with a sport. So I don't know.
Is it Canadian football?
I don't know what it is or care, to be very honest.
Okay.
Probably curling.
You're able to get 1 point out of it.
Okay. So TCU got another point.
They did.
Add to the record books.
They did. Okay. So here is where we're going tonight. This one, the wrong team is favored. Since when has Florida gotten so good that they go on the road and they're a favorite? Unless I'm missing something here, Florida is Colin Castleton and then just a bunch of names around him. LSU wins this game at home. Book it.
There it is.
Yeah.
Man,
You don't hear that very often. I don't need to ask Watson if he agrees. Yesterday, I was messed up. But you gave me bad info. Really bad info.
So did Lee Corso. So did
me.
Who else on the panel picked TCU? So at least it made me feel
Desmond Howard, wasn't it?
Desmond Howard picked TCU. Corso picked TCU. Misery loves company, George.
By the way, while we were talking, Georgia has just scored again. It's 91-8.
Well, let's stay on for another 30 seconds. We'll get it to 100.
Get it to 100.
See if they break Cumberland's record.
Watson, are you ready for tomorrow's State of the Union?
Oh, yes. Ready for the State of the Union.
Yeah.
There'll be some good
spicy
stuff come out of that.
Yeah. You'll even get to see Michael.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Might put a little better look into the set.
Well, it'll put a younger look, but that wouldn't be hard to do.
No, anybody under 60, and it probably would have worked. We're done. We'll see you tomorrow. It's going to be a good show. I promise. Stay tuned.